Dr. Victoria Chen stared at the clinical trial data that would destroy everything her family had built over 3 generations. Her hands trembled as she read the final analysis, confirming what she'd prayed was just a statistical anomaly. Cardio-max, increased risk of sudden cardiac death in patients under 40. Immediate market withdrawal recommended. The words blurred on the screen as Victoria realized that pulling their blockbuster heart medication would not only cost Chen Pharmaceuticals $8 billion in annual revenue, but potentially bankrupt the company that employed 60,000 people worldwide. Her phone buzzed with an urgent text from her head of clinical research, Dr. Sarah Martinez. "Victoria, we've confirmed 12 more sudden deaths in young patients. All were taking Cardiomax as prescribed. We cannot wait another hour." What Victoria didn't know was that her trusted chief medical officer, Dr. Michael Foster, had been aware of these cardiac risks for 6 months, while secretly selling company stock and collaborating with rival pharmaceutical companies. The security cameras in her corner office were recording every moment of her agonizing decision between protecting her company's profits and saving innocent lives. This was the night that would redefine pharmaceutical ethics forever. If this story resonates with you, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and let us know in the comments where you're watching from today. Chen Pharmaceuticals' headquarters rose 42 stories above the San Francisco skyline, its sleek glass facade reflecting the innovative spirit that had made it one of America's most successful biotechnology companies. The building housed research laboratories, where brilliant scientists worked around the clock to develop life-saving medications, manufacturing facilities that produced drugs for patients worldwide, and executive offices where 3 generations of the Chen family had guided the company's mission to heal human suffering through medical innovation. Dr. Victoria Chen occupied the corner office on the 42nd floor, surrounded by panoramic views of San Francisco Bay and the sprawling biotech campus that represented her family's 70-year commitment to pharmaceutical excellence and medical breakthrough. At 45 years old, Victoria had inherited not just corporate leadership, but also the weight of family legacy and moral obligation that demanded prioritizing patient welfare over financial considerations in all business decisions. The Chen family's pharmaceutical dynasty had begun with her grandfather, Dr. James Chen, who had immigrated from Taiwan in 1953 with advanced degrees in chemistry and pharmacology, founding Chen Pharmaceuticals in a small laboratory where he developed innovative treatments for infectious diseases that had plagued developing nations and underserved communities worldwide. James Chen's breakthrough antibiotics and anti-malarial medications had saved millions of lives while establishing Chen Pharmaceuticals as a trusted name in global health and medical humanitarian efforts. His commitment to affordable pricing and international distribution had prioritized patient access over profit maximization, creating corporate culture that valued medical ethics and social responsibility above financial returns. Victoria's father, Dr. Robert Chen, had expanded the company's research capabilities during the 1980s and 1990s while maintaining the family's ethical standards and commitment to developing medications for neglected diseases and underserved patient populations that larger pharmaceutical companies had ignored due to limited profit potential. Under Robert's leadership, Chen Pharmaceuticals had pioneered treatments for rare genetic disorders, tropical diseases, and pediatric conditions, while establishing research partnerships with universities and international health organizations that advanced medical knowledge and improved patient outcomes worldwide. The current Chen Pharmaceuticals employed over 60,000 researchers, manufacturers, and medical professionals across 5 continents while generating annual revenues of $12 billion through innovative medications that treated cardiovascular disease, diabetes, cancer, and neurological disorders affecting hundreds of millions of patients globally. Victoria's scientific background included medical degrees from Stanford and Harvard, followed by residency training in cardiology at Massachusetts General Hospital and research fellowships at the National Institutes of Health, where she had contributed to breakthrough developments in heart disease treatment and prevention that had influenced medical practice worldwide. Her transition from practicing cardiologist to pharmaceutical executive had been motivated by opportunities to impact millions of patients through drug development rather than treating individual cases, while her medical expertise provided unique insights into patient needs and clinical challenges that guided Chen Pharmaceuticals' research priorities and development strategies. CardioMax represented the culmination of Victoria's vision for Chen Pharmaceuticals, combining cutting-edge cardiovascular science with the company's commitment to accessible pricing and global distribution that could prevent heart attacks and strokes for patients who previously lacked effective treatment options. The medication had required 8 years of development and over $2 billion in research and clinical testing before receiving FDA approval as a revolutionary treatment for early-stage cardiovascular disease that could prevent heart attacks in patients with elevated cholesterol and high blood pressure. CardioMax's clinical trials had demonstrated remarkable effectiveness in preventing cardiovascular events, while showing excellent safety profiles in studies involving over 40,000 patients worldwide. The medication's approval had been celebrated as a triumph of medical innovation that could save millions of lives while generating substantial revenue to fund Chen Pharmaceuticals' continued research and development. The drug's commercial success had exceeded all projections, as physicians worldwide prescribed CardioMax for patients with cardiovascular risk factors, generating over $8 billion in annual revenue, while becoming the most prescribed cardiac medication in pharmaceutical history. But the success of CardioMax had also created enormous financial pressure and corporate expectations that prioritized revenue growth and market share expansion over the careful safety monitoring and conservative medical practice that had historically characterized Chen Pharmaceuticals' approach to drug development and commercialization. Victoria's corner office reflected both her medical background and corporate responsibilities, featuring medical journals and research publications alongside financial reports and business development strategies that demonstrated the complex balance between scientific innovation and commercial success that modern pharmaceutical leadership required. The office's technology systems provided real-time access to global sales data, clinical trial results, adverse event reports, and regulatory communications that enabled comprehensive oversight of Chen Pharmaceuticals' operations while ensuring rapid response to safety concerns and medical emergencies that affected patient welfare. Dr. Sarah Martinez served as Chen Pharmaceuticals' head of clinical research, responsible for monitoring the safety and effectiveness of all company medications through post-market surveillance and ongoing clinical studies that detected adverse effects and drug interactions that might not have been apparent during pre-approval testing. Sarah's background included advanced degrees in epidemiology and biostatistics from Johns Hopkins, and extensive experience in pharmaceutical safety research that had earned recognition from regulatory agencies and medical organizations for her innovative approaches to drug safety monitoring and risk assessment. Her research team continuously analyzed adverse event reports, hospital records, and physician communications to identify potential safety signals that might indicate previously unknown risks or drug interactions that required investigation and possible regulatory action to protect patient safety. Dr. Michael Foster had joined Chen Pharmaceuticals as Chief Medical Officer 2 years earlier, bringing impressive credentials from major pharmaceutical companies and regulatory agencies while promising to accelerate drug development and approval processes that would enhance corporate competitiveness and revenue growth. Michael's background included medical training at prestigious institutions and executive experience at companies known for aggressive business strategies and profit maximization, rather than the conservative medical ethics and patient-focused culture that had historically defined Chen Pharmaceuticals' approach to drug development. But unknown to Victoria or Sarah, Michael had been systematically concealing safety data and manipulating clinical trial results to hide CardioMax's cardiac risks, while secretly coordinating with rival pharmaceutical companies and hedge funds that could profit from Chen Pharmaceuticals' potential collapse. On this particular Thursday evening in November, Victoria was reviewing quarterly financial reports that demonstrated CardioMax's continued commercial success, while Sarah's urgent safety analysis waited in her email inbox with evidence that would destroy the drug's market viability and threaten Chen Pharmaceuticals' financial survival. The security cameras that Victoria had installed throughout Chen Pharmaceuticals' executive offices for protection against corporate espionage were about to record the most difficult decision in pharmaceutical history as she faced comprehensive evidence of CardioMax's deadly side effects. Dr. Sarah Martinez had been tracking unusual patterns in adverse event reports for CardioMax when her statistical analysis revealed a terrifying correlation between the medication and sudden cardiac death in patients under 40 years old who had no previous history of serious heart disease or life-threatening medical conditions. The data analysis included reports from hospitals, physicians, and coroners worldwide who had documented sudden deaths in young adults taking CardioMax for routine cardiovascular prevention, with autopsy results showing cardiac arrhythmias and heart failure that could not be explained by underlying medical conditions or other medications. The statistical significance is undeniable, Sarah explained to her research team while reviewing comprehensive data that included over 300 sudden deaths in patients aged 25 to 40 who'd been taking CardioMax for routine cholesterol management and blood pressure control. We're seeing cardiac death rates that are 4 times higher than normal population statistics. Her epidemiological analysis had controlled for demographic factors, underlying health conditions, lifestyle variables, and concurrent medications, while confirming that CardioMax was the only common factor linking young adults who had experienced sudden cardiac death, despite having no previous indicators of serious heart disease. The victims included athletes, professionals, parents, and students who had been prescribed CardioMax for preventive cardiovascular care based on routine medical examinations that identified elevated cholesterol or mild hypertension that posed theoretical long-term risks but no immediate health threats. Sarah's investigation had revealed that the cardiac deaths were occurring primarily in patients who had been taking CardioMax for more than 6 months, suggesting that prolonged exposure created cumulative toxicity that increased risk of fatal arrhythmias and sudden cardiac arrest in susceptible individuals. The mechanism of cardiac toxicity appeared to involve CardioMax's interaction with cellular ion channels that regulated heart rhythm, creating electrical instability that could trigger fatal arrhythmias in patients with genetic predispositions or metabolic variations that had not been detected during pre-approval clinical trials. These deaths are preventable if we act immediately, Sarah told her research assistant while preparing comprehensive safety reports for Victoria and regulatory agencies. Every day we delay withdrawal means more young people will die from a medication they're taking to prevent future health problems. The urgency of Sarah's concerns was intensified by recent reports from emergency departments and cardiac intensive care units that documented increasing numbers of young adults presenting with life-threatening arrhythmias and sudden cardiac arrest requiring emergency resuscitation and intensive medical intervention. Dr. Jennifer Kim, a cardiologist at San Francisco General Hospital, had contacted Sarah directly after treating 3 young adults in 1 week who had experienced sudden cardiac arrest while taking CardioMax, with all 3 patients requiring emergency defibrillation and intensive care to survive episodes that could easily have been fatal. Dr. Martinez, we're seeing unprecedented numbers of cardiac arrests in healthy young adults taking CardioMax. Dr. Kim had reported during their urgent phone conversation. These patients had no risk factors for sudden cardiac death except their use of your company's medication for routine prevention. The hospital reports included detailed cardiac monitoring data that documented specific arrhythmia patterns associated with CardioMax toxicity, providing medical evidence that linked the medication to potentially fatal heart rhythm disturbances in patients who had never experienced cardiac problems. Sarah's investigation also revealed that similar patterns were emerging in European and Asian markets, where CardioMax had been available for extended periods, with cardiology societies and medical journals beginning to publish case reports that documented sudden deaths and near-fatal arrhythmias in young patients taking the medication. The international scope of cardiac toxicity indicated that CardioMax's dangers were not limited to specific populations or genetic groups, but represented systematic risks that affected patients worldwide who had been prescribed the medication for routine cardiovascular prevention and cholesterol management. But Sarah's most disturbing discovery was evidence that Dr. Michael Foster had been aware of early safety signals for over 6 months, while systematically suppressing adverse event reports and manipulating safety data to conceal CardioMax's cardiac risks from regulatory agencies and Chen Pharmaceutical's leadership. The forensic analysis of Michael's communications and data management revealed that he had been directing subordinate employees to reclassify sudden deaths as unrelated to CardioMax therapy, while providing false reassurances to Victoria and other executives about the medication's safety profile and regulatory compliance. Michael has been deliberately concealing safety data while providing false reports to management, Sarah explained to her security-cleared research director, while documenting evidence of systematic fraud and regulatory deception that constituted federal crimes and endangered patient safety. The evidence included email communications where Michael had instructed adverse event coordinators to attribute sudden deaths to underlying medical conditions or drug interactions, rather than reporting them as potential CardioMax toxicity, creating false safety databases that concealed the medication's true risk profile. Sarah's investigation also uncovered financial transactions that suggested Michael had been selling Chen Pharmaceutical's stock while purchasing put options that would generate enormous profits when CardioMax's safety problems were eventually discovered and the company's stock price collapsed. The securities fraud appeared to be coordinated with communications to hedge funds and rival pharmaceutical companies that provided advance notice of CardioMax's safety problems while enabling coordinated short-selling and market manipulation that could generate billions in illegal profits. This isn't just medical fraud, Sarah realized while analyzing Michael's financial transactions and communications with external entities. This appears to be systematic corporate sabotage designed to destroy Chen Pharmaceuticals while generating enormous profits for competitors and criminal conspirators. The scope of Michael's betrayal extended beyond securities fraud to include potential collaboration with foreign pharmaceutical companies that sought to eliminate Chen Pharmaceuticals' market leadership while acquiring the company's research capabilities and international distribution networks at bankruptcy prices. Sarah's discovery of the conspiracy created immediate personal danger as her investigation threatened to expose criminal activities that had generated hundreds of millions in illegal profits while endangering Chen Pharmaceutical's survival and the welfare of employees who depended on the company's continued operations. Her decision to contact Victoria directly rather than reporting through normal corporate channels, reflected understanding that Michael's position and influence might enable him to suppress safety reports and continue endangering patient lives while protecting his criminal associates and financial interests. The urgent text message that Sarah sent to Victoria's personal phone was designed to bypass corporate communication systems that Michael might be monitoring while ensuring that critical safety information reached company leadership despite attempts at concealment and sabotage. Victoria, we have confirmed 12 more sudden deaths in young CardioMax patients, all cardiac arrests in healthy adults taking the medication as prescribed. Michael has been concealing this data for months. We need immediate emergency meeting. Patient lives at stake. The message crystallized the crisis that would force Victoria to choose between Chen Pharmaceutical's financial survival and her moral obligations to patient safety while confronting the reality that trusted executives had been systematically betraying the company's mission and endangering innocent lives. Victoria's emergency meeting with Sarah took place in a secure conference room at 10 p.m., where advanced encryption systems and signal-blocking technology ensured that their conversation could not be intercepted by corporate espionage or surveillance systems that might be compromising Chen Pharmaceutical's internal communications and decision-making processes. "Sarah, show me everything you've discovered," Victoria demanded, while reviewing comprehensive safety data that documented the systematic nature of CardioMax's cardiac toxicity and Michael Foster's criminal cover-up that had endangered thousands of patients worldwide. Sarah's presentation included statistical analyses, autopsy reports, hospital records, and international safety data that established clear evidence of increased sudden death rates in young adults taking CardioMax for routine cardiovascular prevention, with risk factors that had been concealed from regulatory agencies and medical professionals. The data shows conclusively that CardioMax increases cardiac death risk by 400% in patients under 40, Sarah explained, while displaying graphs and charts that documented the medication's deadly effects. Michael has been aware of these risks since May, while systematically concealing safety reports and falsifying regulatory submissions. The evidence included over 300 documented deaths worldwide, with additional cases being identified daily as hospitals and coroners recognize patterns of sudden cardiac arrest in young adults, whose only risk factor was CardioMax therapy prescribed for routine cholesterol management and blood pressure control. Victoria's medical training enabled her to understand the clinical significance of Sarah's findings, while her role as CEO forced her to consider the financial implications of withdrawing Chen Pharmaceutical's most profitable medication during a period when the company faced enormous research expenses and competitive pressures. "Sarah, if we withdraw CardioMax immediately, Chen Pharmaceuticals will lose $8 billion in annual revenue while facing potentially unlimited legal liability for wrongful death claims and regulatory penalties," Victoria said, while struggling with competing obligations to shareholders and patients. The financial analysis included not just lost revenue, but also potential legal settlements, regulatory fines, stock market losses, and operational disruptions that could bankrupt Chen Pharmaceuticals while eliminating 60,000 jobs and ending the company's contributions to medical research and global health initiatives. But Sarah's response focused on immediate moral obligations that transcended financial considerations, while emphasizing that continued delay would result in additional preventable deaths of young adults who trusted Chen Pharmaceuticals' commitment to patient safety and medical ethics. Victoria, every day we delay withdrawal means more young people will die from cardiac arrests that we can prevent, Sarah replied, while displaying photographs and medical records of recent victims. These are preventable deaths that violate everything your family built this company to achieve. The victim documentation included young professionals, athletes, students, and parents who had been prescribed CardioMax for routine preventive care while maintaining active lifestyles and health practices that should have protected them from sudden cardiac death and life-threatening medical emergencies. Victoria's examination of individual case reports provided human context for statistical data, while demonstrating that CardioMax's victims were not high-risk patients, but healthy young adults whose deaths represented profound tragedies for families and communities that had trusted pharmaceutical safety standards and medical recommendations. "Show me the evidence about Michael's cover-up," Victoria requested, while preparing to confront betrayal by someone she had trusted with patient safety and corporate integrity that formed the foundation of Chen Pharmaceuticals' reputation and business operations. Sarah's forensic analysis revealed systematic fraud that included falsified safety reports, suppressed adverse event data, manipulation of regulatory submissions, and coordination with external entities that suggested comprehensive criminal conspiracy designed to conceal CardioMax's dangers while enabling securities fraud and market manipulation. Michael has been selling company stock while purchasing put options worth over $50 million, Sarah explained, while displaying trading records that documented systematic securities fraud based on material non-public information about CardioMax's safety problems. He's also been communicating with hedge funds and rival pharmaceutical companies that are positioned to profit from our collapse. The securities transactions provided clear evidence of criminal intent, while demonstrating that Michael's concealment of safety data was motivated by personal financial gain rather than corporate loyalty or misguided attempts to protect Chen Pharmaceuticals' business interests. The communications with external entities included encrypted messages to pharmaceutical executives and financial institutions that appeared to coordinate market manipulation strategies while providing advance notice of Chen Pharmaceuticals' vulnerabilities that could be exploited for competitive advantage and illegal profits. This appears to be systematic corporate sabotage designed to destroy Chen Pharmaceuticals while generating enormous profits for Michael's criminal associates, Sarah continued, while displaying evidence of coordination with rival companies that sought to acquire Chen Pharmaceuticals' research capabilities and market share at bankruptcy prices. The scope of criminal conspiracy extended beyond individual securities fraud to include potential industrial espionage and foreign interference with American pharmaceutical leadership that threatened national health security and medical innovation capabilities that served global patient welfare. Victoria's realization that Michael's betrayal constituted systematic criminal conspiracy rather than individual misconduct increased the urgency of protective measures while highlighting the importance of immediate cooperation with federal law enforcement agencies that could investigate and prosecute complex white-collar crimes. Sarah, we need to contact the FBI immediately while implementing emergency withdrawal of CardioMax and comprehensive security measures to protect additional evidence and ensure that patient safety becomes our immediate priority, Victoria decided, while beginning the most difficult crisis management in pharmaceutical history. The decision to prioritize patient safety over financial considerations reflected the ethical standards that had distinguished Chen Pharmaceuticals throughout its 70-year history, while demonstrating corporate leadership that valued human welfare over profit maximization and competitive positioning. Victoria's choice to withdraw CardioMax, despite devastating financial consequences, established moral leadership that would influence pharmaceutical industry standards, while demonstrating that ethical corporate governance could triumph over criminal sabotage and market manipulation. The emergency protocols that Victoria implemented included immediate contact with regulatory agencies, law enforcement authorities, media organizations, and medical professionals who needed accurate information about CardioMax's risks, while Chen Pharmaceuticals coordinated the most comprehensive drug withdrawal in pharmaceutical history. "We're going to do this right," Victoria announced, while beginning implementation of withdrawal procedures that would cost billions, but save lives. Chen Pharmaceuticals will demonstrate that patient safety remains our highest priority, regardless of financial costs or competitive consequences. The commitment to comprehensive transparency and patient protection reflected family values and corporate mission that had guided Chen Pharmaceuticals' operations, while establishing precedents for pharmaceutical industry accountability and ethical leadership that prioritized medical welfare over financial considerations. As Victoria implemented emergency CardioMax withdrawal procedures, while coordinating with regulatory agencies and law enforcement, the human consequences of Michael Foster's criminal cover-up became devastatingly clear through testimonies from families whose loved ones had died from preventable cardiac arrests. The Peninsula Community Center in Palo Alto served as the venue for Chen Pharmaceuticals' first public meeting with affected families, where Victoria would personally address victims' relatives while announcing comprehensive compensation programs and support services that acknowledged moral responsibility beyond legal obligations. Jennifer Park sat in the front row, holding photographs of her 28-year-old husband David, a software engineer who had suffered sudden cardiac arrest while jogging in Golden Gate Park. Dying instantly from arrhythmias caused by CardioMax therapy he had been taking for slightly elevated cholesterol, discovered during a routine physical examination. "Dr. Chen, your company marketed CardioMax as safe for young adults like my husband, while your executives knew it was causing cardiac death," Jennifer said, while displaying David's medical records and the prescription bottle that had contained his fatal medication. "How do you explain taking our money while hiding evidence that your drug would kill healthy people?" The accusation of knowing concealment reflected accurate understanding that Michael's criminal cover-up had transformed routine medical treatment into preventable tragedy, while Chen Pharmaceuticals' leadership remained unaware of systematic fraud that violated every principle of pharmaceutical ethics and patient protection. Victoria's response acknowledged corporate responsibility while explaining the criminal conspiracy that had concealed safety data from company leadership and regulatory agencies who could have prevented deaths through earlier warnings and immediate withdrawal of dangerous medications. Mrs. Park, Chen Pharmaceuticals accepts full responsibility for your husband's death, while recognizing that our company was victimized by criminal executives who betrayed patient safety for personal profit, Victoria replied, while offering comprehensive support for families affected by CardioMax toxicity. The acknowledgement of corporate responsibility while explaining criminal interference demonstrated Victoria's commitment to transparency and accountability, while distinguishing legitimate pharmaceutical operations from criminal sabotage and securities fraud that had endangered patient welfare. Robert Martinez, whose 19-year-old daughter Maria had died from sudden cardiac arrest during her sophomore year at Stanford University, demanded detailed explanations about how Chen Pharmaceuticals would prevent similar betrayals, while ensuring that compensation reflected the full scope of loss and suffering caused by preventable medical tragedies. "My daughter was taking CardioMax because her doctor said it would prevent future heart problems," Robert testified while presenting Maria's medical records and university transcripts that documented a promising life destroyed by preventable cardiac toxicity. She died because your company failed to protect patients from criminal employees who put profits before human lives. The documentation of young lives cut short by preventable cardiac deaths provided concrete evidence of human suffering that transcended financial losses while demonstrating the moral urgency that had motivated Victoria's decision to withdraw CardioMax despite enormous corporate costs. Victoria's announcement of unlimited compensation funds and comprehensive victim support demonstrated Chen Pharmaceutical's commitment to accountability while establishing precedents for pharmaceutical industry responsibility that prioritized human welfare over legal liability and damage control strategies. Chen Pharmaceuticals will establish a $10 billion victim compensation fund with no caps on individual payments while providing lifetime medical coverage and support services for all families affected by CardioMax toxicity, Victoria announced, while outlining assistance programs that exceeded legal requirements and industry standards. The compensation announcement represented unprecedented pharmaceutical industry accountability, while demonstrating that ethical corporate leadership could acknowledge responsibility and provide meaningful support for victim families despite devastating financial costs and competitive disadvantages. Sarah Martinez's presentation to victim families explained the medical mechanisms of CardioMax toxicity, while documenting how criminal concealment had prevented early detection and protective warnings that could have saved lives through modified prescribing practices and enhanced patient monitoring. CardioMax causes cardiac electrical instability in susceptible individuals through ion channel interactions that we would have investigated immediately if Michael Foster had not falsified safety reports and suppressed adverse event data, Sarah explained, while providing technical analysis that established criminal responsibility rather than pharmaceutical negligence. Her medical expertise and direct involvement in discovering the cover-up provided credibility while demonstrating that legitimate Chen Pharmaceuticals operations prioritized patient safety and comprehensive adverse event monitoring that had been systematically undermined by criminal interference. The family meetings continued throughout the week as Chen Pharmaceuticals executives traveled internationally to address affected relatives, while implementing compensation programs and support services that acknowledged human suffering and demonstrated corporate commitment to healing rather than damage control. International meetings in European and Asian markets revealed similar patterns of preventable cardiac deaths in young adults, while confirming that criminal concealment had created global dangers that affected patients who had trusted Chen Pharmaceuticals' safety reputation and regulatory compliance. The London meeting included testimonies from British families whose children had died from sudden cardiac arrest while taking CardioMax for routine cholesterol management prescribed by physicians who relied on pharmaceutical safety data that had been systematically falsified and manipulated. Our son James was a medical student who understood pharmaceutical science and trusted your company's safety claims, testified Margaret Thompson while presenting James's medical school transcripts and research publications. He died because criminal executives betrayed the trust that patients and medical professionals place in pharmaceutical integrity. The irony of medical professionals becoming victims of pharmaceutical fraud created additional emotional impact while demonstrating that even individuals with medical training could not protect themselves from systematic deception and regulatory manipulation that concealed life-threatening medication risks. Victoria's personal meetings with each victim family demonstrated Chen Pharmaceuticals' commitment to individual recognition and accountability, while acknowledging that corporate leaders bore moral responsibility for ensuring that criminal conspirators could not endanger patient safety through systematic fraud and regulatory deception. The emotional toll on Victoria and other Chen Pharmaceuticals executives was evident as they confronted the human cost of betrayal by trusted colleagues, while understanding that their company's reputation and family legacy had been permanently scarred by criminal activities that violated fundamental pharmaceutical ethics. Media coverage of victim meetings generated public understanding of the distinction between legitimate pharmaceutical operations and criminal sabotage, while highlighting the human consequences of securities fraud and corporate espionage that endangered patients for illegal financial gain. The transformation of public perception from pharmaceutical industry criticism to support for victimized companies and families reflected growing awareness that medication safety problems had resulted from criminal conspiracy rather than corporate negligence, while demonstrating the importance of enhanced security and employee oversight. Chen Pharmaceuticals' immediate withdrawal of CardioMax created unprecedented financial challenges as the loss of $8 billion in annual revenue, combined with victim compensation, legal settlements, and regulatory penalties to threaten the company's survival while testing Victoria's leadership and strategic planning capabilities. Chief Financial Officer Dr. Lisa Wang presented comprehensive financial analysis that documented total crisis costs approaching $15 billion, while projecting recovery scenarios and strategic adjustments that would be required to maintain corporate viability and competitive positioning in global pharmaceutical markets. The immediate revenue loss from CardioMax withdrawal eliminates 67% of our annual income, while victim compensation commitments totaled $10 billion for unlimited medical coverage and family support that exceeds our current cash reserves, Wang explained, while displaying financial projections that showed potential bankruptcy without emergency restructuring. The financial crisis was compounded by regulatory penalties that could reach several billion dollars, while legal liability from wrongful death claims created additional exposure that threatened Chen Pharmaceuticals' remaining assets and operational capabilities. Beyond direct financial losses, Chen Pharmaceuticals faced stock market collapse as share prices declined by 78% following CardioMax withdrawal announcements, while institutional investors and pension funds evaluated the company's long-term viability and competitive prospects. Stock market reactions reflect uncertainty about our recovery timeline and business model sustainability, Wang reported, while displaying trading data and analyst projections that showed investor concerns about Chen Pharmaceuticals' ability to survive the largest pharmaceutical crisis in industry history. The market collapse eliminated over $40 billion in shareholder value, while affecting pension funds and retirement accounts that had invested in Chen Pharmaceuticals based on the company's historical performance and ethical reputation in pharmaceutical development. International markets showed similar patterns of investor panic and financial uncertainty as global pharmaceutical investors struggled to evaluate Chen Pharmaceuticals' prospects while considering the broader implications for pharmaceutical industry safety standards and regulatory oversight. The Federal Reserve and Treasury Department provided confidential consultations about Chen Pharmaceuticals' financial stability while recognizing the company's strategic importance for American pharmaceutical leadership and global health security that justified potential government intervention and support. Federal officials understand that Chen Pharmaceuticals' collapse would eliminate critical research capabilities and pharmaceutical manufacturing that serves national health interests, explained Treasury consultant Dr. Michael Rodriguez during confidential briefings about potential government assistance for strategic American pharmaceutical companies. The national security implications of Chen Pharmaceutical's survival generated bipartisan political interest in financial assistance and regulatory reforms that would protect American pharmaceutical leadership, while ensuring that victim compensation and safety improvements receive priority over corporate profits. Congressional leaders recognized that Chen Pharmaceutical's destruction through criminal sabotage could eliminate American competitiveness in pharmaceutical innovation while benefiting foreign companies and hostile nations that sought to dominate global healthcare markets through illegal interference rather than legitimate competition. Victoria's decision to prioritize victim compensation over corporate financial protection demonstrated ethical leadership while generating political and regulatory support that helped offset crisis costs through tax advantages and emergency financial assistance programs. The company's commitment to unlimited victim support and comprehensive safety improvements attracted positive media coverage and public sympathy that accelerated financial recovery while distinguishing Chen Pharmaceuticals from competitors who had handled similar crises through legal minimization and damage control. Customer and physician loyalty surveys showed that Chen Pharmaceuticals' transparent communication and comprehensive victim compensation had strengthened professional relationships and prescriber confidence, while demonstrating that ethical crisis management could generate competitive advantages despite enormous immediate costs. Physician trust and prescribing confidence have increased significantly following our withdrawal response, while international regulatory agencies have expressed support for Chen Pharmaceuticals' safety standards and ethical leadership, reported Marketing Director Dr. Jennifer Walsh while presenting research that documented positive brand impact from transparent communication. The counterintuitive improvement in professional relationships reflected medical community appreciation for Chen Pharmaceuticals' acceptance of responsibility and comprehensive patient protection, while contrasting with pharmaceutical industry practices that typically prioritize legal protection over medical ethics and patient welfare. International pharmaceutical markets responded positively to Chen Pharmaceuticals' crisis management, while regulatory agencies in Europe and Asia expedited approval processes for new medications from a company that had demonstrated superior safety standards and ethical commitment to patient protection. The accelerated regulatory support provided competitive advantages that helped offset CardioMax revenue losses while establishing Chen Pharmaceuticals as a preferred partner for international health organizations and government agencies that required reliable pharmaceutical suppliers. Emergency cost reduction measures included temporary salary reductions for executives and managers, while maintaining employment and benefits for research personnel and manufacturing workers whose contributions were essential for developing new medications and maintaining operational capabilities. We're protecting jobs and research capabilities while executives bear financial responsibility for recovery costs, Victoria announced, while implementing austerity measures that preserved Chen Pharmaceuticals' core competencies and employee welfare, despite devastating financial pressures. The employment protection policies generated worker loyalty and political support, while demonstrating that crisis management could balance corporate survival with social responsibility and stakeholder welfare that distinguished ethical leadership from pure profit maximization. Private equity and venture capital firms offered acquisition proposals that could provide immediate financial relief, while Victoria evaluated strategic partnerships that would preserve Chen Pharmaceuticals' independence and research mission while accessing capital resources for recovery and expansion. The acquisition negotiations attracted interest from international pharmaceutical companies, while Victoria insisted on maintaining Chen Pharmaceuticals' ethical standards and family control that had distinguished the company's operations throughout its 70-year history of medical innovation and patient advocacy. Dr. Michael Foster's arrest by federal agents occurred during a board meeting, where he was presenting falsified safety reports about other Chen Pharmaceuticals medications, creating dramatic evidence of his systematic fraud while demonstrating the scope of criminal conspiracy that had endangered multiple drug development programs. FBI Special Agent Maria Santos announced criminal charges that included securities fraud, regulatory deception, conspiracy to commit murder, and foreign interference with American pharmaceutical manufacturing, while documenting Michael's collaboration with rival companies and hostile intelligence services. Dr. Foster used his position at Chen Pharmaceuticals to systematically endanger patient safety while generating illegal profits through securities manipulation and corporate espionage. Agent Santos explained, while presenting evidence of criminal activities that had affected multiple medications and endangered thousands of patients. The federal investigation revealed that Michael's criminal activities extended beyond CardioMax to include manipulation of safety data for other Chen Pharmaceuticals medications, while his collaboration with foreign entities suggested broader campaigns to damage American pharmaceutical competitiveness and technological leadership. The charges included conspiracy to commit murder based on evidence that Michael had deliberately concealed lethal side effects, while encouraging expanded prescribing of CardioMax to young adults who faced the highest risk of sudden cardiac death from the medication's toxic effects. Evidence shows that Dr. Foster knew CardioMax was killing young adults, while actively promoting expanded use among college students and young professionals. Prosecutor Jennifer Martinez announced, while presenting recorded communications that documented criminal intent and callous disregard for human life. The murder conspiracy charges reflected legal recognition that deliberate concealment of lethal medication effects constituted premeditated homicide, while Michael's financial motivation and systematic deception established criminal intent that warranted maximum penalties under federal law. Securities fraud charges documented Michael's systematic trading based on material non-public information, while his coordination with hedge funds and market manipulators had generated over $100 million in illegal profits through short selling and put option strategies. Financial analysis shows that Dr. Foster and his criminal associates generated enormous profits by betting against Chen Pharmaceuticals, while deliberately concealing safety information that would eventually destroy the company's stock value, explained Securities and Exchange Commission investigator Dr. Robert Kim. The securities manipulation had involved sophisticated trading strategies and international money laundering that required coordination with foreign financial institutions, while Michael's criminal network included pharmaceutical executives, hedge fund managers, and intelligence operatives from hostile nations. Foreign interference charges reflected evidence that Michael had been recruited by Chinese intelligence services that sought to damage American pharmaceutical leadership while acquiring Chen Pharmaceuticals' research capabilities and intellectual property through bankruptcy acquisition and forced technology transfer. Investigation reveals that Dr. Foster was part of systematic Chinese intelligence operations targeting American pharmaceutical companies for technological theft and competitive sabotage, testified CIA analyst Dr. Patricia Williams during classified briefings about national security implications. The foreign intelligence connection elevated Michael's case from corporate crime to national security emergency, while demonstrating that pharmaceutical sabotage constituted economic warfare against American technological leadership and global health security capabilities. Michael's criminal trial attracted international attention as prosecutors presented evidence of systematic betrayal that had endangered American patients while serving foreign intelligence objectives and criminal financial conspiracies that threatened pharmaceutical industry integrity and public health security. Victim family testimonies provided emotional context for legal proceedings, while demonstrating the human consequences of pharmaceutical crime and foreign interference that had caused preventable deaths and suffering for families who trusted American medical safety standards and regulatory oversight. Jennifer Park's testimony about her husband David's death created powerful evidence of Michael's criminal impact, while establishing moral urgency that influenced jury deliberations and public understanding of pharmaceutical crime consequences and national security implications. Dr. Foster murdered my husband for money while betraying American patients and pharmaceutical integrity, Jennifer testified, while presenting David's medical records and the falsified safety reports that had concealed CardioMax's lethal effects. His crimes represent betrayal of everything that American medicine should protect. Expert witnesses explained the medical and financial mechanisms of Michael's crimes, while documenting how pharmaceutical sabotage could affect national health security and American competitiveness in global markets that required reliable medication development and safety standards. The jury deliberation lasted 18 hours, before returning guilty verdicts on all charges while recommending maximum sentences that reflected the severity of pharmaceutical crime and foreign interference with American health security and medical innovation capabilities. The evidence was overwhelming and horrifying, explained jury foreman Dr. Lisa Martinez after the verdict. Dr. Foster systematically betrayed patient safety and American interests while causing preventable deaths for personal profit and foreign intelligence objectives. The conviction on all charges ensured that Michael would face life imprisonment, while comprehensive asset forfeiture would eliminate his criminal profits and provide additional resources for victim compensation and pharmaceutical security improvements. Federal sentencing guidelines recommended life imprisonment without parole, while asset forfeiture proceedings targeted all property and investments associated with Michael's criminal activities, while his criminal associates faced similar charges and penalties in related prosecutions. The international scope of criminal prosecution included cooperation with allied law enforcement agencies, while Chinese intelligence operatives faced diplomatic consequences and economic sanctions that demonstrated American commitment to protecting pharmaceutical security and medical innovation from foreign interference and sabotage. Michael Foster's conviction and Chen Pharmaceuticals' ethical crisis response created lasting changes in pharmaceutical industry practices, while establishing new standards for safety monitoring, executive accountability, and international cooperation that protected patient welfare from criminal interference and foreign sabotage. The Pharmaceutical Security Act, passed with bipartisan congressional support, incorporated lessons from Michael's case, while requiring enhanced background investigations, regular security clearances, and comprehensive oversight mechanisms for executives with access to safety data and regulatory information. Chen Pharmaceuticals' experience demonstrates that pharmaceutical companies require sophisticated counterintelligence capabilities and security protocols to protect patient safety from criminal interference and foreign espionage, explained congressional sponsor Senator Patricia Williams while outlining legislative requirements for industry security improvements. The legislation included mandatory reporting requirements for suspicious financial transactions by pharmaceutical executives, while establishing federal oversight mechanisms that could detect securities fraud and foreign interference before they endangered patient safety and medication security. International pharmaceutical regulatory agencies adopted Chen Pharmaceuticals' safety monitoring protocols as industry standards while establishing information-sharing agreements that could detect adverse events and criminal interference across national boundaries and regulatory jurisdictions. The European Medicines Agency and World Health Organization incorporated Chen Pharmaceuticals' transparency standards into global pharmaceutical regulations while recognizing that ethical crisis management could serve both patient welfare and industry credibility in international markets. Academic institutions established research programs in pharmaceutical security and ethics while incorporating Michael's case into medical education curricula that taught future physicians and pharmaceutical scientists about criminal threats to medication safety and professional integrity. Harvard Medical School and Stanford University created joint programs in pharmaceutical security while providing training for industry professionals who needed advanced capabilities for detecting and preventing criminal interference with drug development and safety monitoring. Chen Pharmaceuticals became a model for pharmaceutical industry security while providing consulting services for other companies that needed enhanced counterintelligence capabilities and safety protocols that could protect against criminal sabotage and foreign interference. Victoria's leadership during the crisis had established her reputation as a pharmaceutical industry reformer, while her commitment to patient safety over financial considerations influenced regulatory policies and industry standards worldwide. The victim compensation programs that Chen Pharmaceuticals had established exceeded legal requirements, while demonstrating corporate responsibility that influenced industry standards and regulatory expectations for addressing pharmaceutical injuries and safety failures. The Jennifer Park Memorial Foundation, established with victim family cooperation and Chen Pharmaceuticals' support, became a leading advocate for pharmaceutical safety and security while providing research funding for detecting and preventing medication-related injuries and criminal interference. David's death was not meaningless if it leads to enhanced pharmaceutical security and safety standards that protect other families from similar tragedies, Jennifer Park stated during the Foundation's annual conference, while recognizing Chen Pharmaceuticals' ongoing support and commitment to patient protection. The Memorial Foundation's research initiatives influenced pharmaceutical safety standards worldwide, while generating technological innovations and regulatory improvements that enhanced medication security and patient protection from criminal interference and foreign sabotage. Michael Foster's life imprisonment served as a deterrent to other potential pharmaceutical criminals, while his asset forfeiture provided additional resources for victim compensation and pharmaceutical security research that protected American medical innovation from hostile interference. The foreign intelligence operatives who had recruited Michael faced diplomatic expulsion and economic sanctions, while international cooperation had disrupted similar operations targeting other American pharmaceutical companies and medical research institutions. Chen Pharmaceuticals' financial recovery exceeded projections, as the company's enhanced safety standards and ethical reputation attracted new research partnerships and government contracts that provided competitive advantages and revenue growth that offset CardioMax losses. The company's new medications, incorporating enhanced safety protocols and transparent monitoring systems, achieved accelerated regulatory approval, while international markets embraced Chen Pharmaceuticals' security innovations and ethical standards that protected patients and served public health objectives. Stock market recovery reflected investor confidence in Chen Pharmaceuticals' enhanced security measures and ethical leadership, while the company's market capitalization reached record levels based on superior safety standards and competitive advantages in secure pharmaceutical development. International pharmaceutical companies adopted Chen Pharmaceuticals' security protocols and ethical standards, while recognizing that patient protection and industry credibility required comprehensive measures against criminal interference and foreign sabotage that threatened medical innovation and public health. The transformation of pharmaceutical industry security and ethics represented lasting legacy from the Cardio Max crisis, while demonstrating that individual courage and corporate responsibility could create positive changes that protected patients and served national security interests through ethical leadership and comprehensive accountability. Epilogue: The legacy of ethical courage. 5 years after the night Victoria Chen made the agonizing decision to withdraw CardioMax and sacrifice $8 billion in revenue to save patient lives, her choice had transformed pharmaceutical industry standards while establishing new benchmarks for corporate responsibility and ethical leadership in medical innovation. Chen Pharmaceuticals had not only survived the financial devastation, but had emerged as the most trusted and secure pharmaceutical company in the world, with enhanced safety systems and ethical protocols that attracted global admiration and competitive advantages in markets where security and reliability were paramount concerns. Victoria's transition to chairman, while promoting Sarah Martinez to chief executive officer, reflected the family's commitment to scientific leadership and ethical innovation that had distinguished Chen Pharmaceuticals' crisis response while preparing for future challenges in rapidly evolving pharmaceutical markets. Our experience with criminal sabotage and foreign interference made Chen Pharmaceuticals stronger and more committed to patient safety than ever before, Sarah announced during her inaugural address as CEO, while outlining strategic initiatives that leveraged enhanced security capabilities and ethical reputation for continued growth. The enhanced security measures and ethical standards that Chen Pharmaceuticals had implemented exceeded regulatory requirements while establishing the company as a preferred partner for government agencies and international health organizations that required superior reliability and protection against criminal interference. Chen Pharmaceuticals' new medication development had accelerated during the recovery period, as enhanced security measures protected intellectual property, while ethical reputation and government support facilitated technology partnerships and regulatory approvals that positioned the company for continued leadership in pharmaceutical innovation. The victim compensation funds had distributed over $10 billion to affected families while establishing permanent support services and medical coverage that demonstrated corporate commitment to patient welfare that transcended legal obligations and created lasting relationships between Chen Pharmaceuticals and global medical communities. David Park Memorial Research Institute, established through Jennifer Park's advocacy and Chen Pharmaceuticals' support, had become a leading center for pharmaceutical safety research while developing innovative approaches to medication monitoring and criminal threat detection that protected patients worldwide. David's death led to pharmaceutical security improvements that have prevented countless similar tragedies, Jennifer Park reflected during the Institute's 5th anniversary celebration, while acknowledging Chen Pharmaceuticals' continued support for research that honored her husband's memory through patient protection. The Research Institute's innovations had influenced pharmaceutical safety standards globally, while generating technological breakthroughs and regulatory improvements that enhanced medication security and patient protection from criminal interference and foreign sabotage. Michael Foster's continued imprisonment had served as a permanent deterrent to pharmaceutical crime, while his case established legal precedents for prosecuting corporate betrayal and foreign interference that threatened American medical innovation and patient safety. The enhanced federal capabilities for detecting pharmaceutical crime and foreign interference had prevented numerous additional cases while demonstrating that comprehensive security measures and industry cooperation could effectively protect medical innovation from hostile threats and criminal sabotage. Chen Pharmaceutical's stock performance had reached historic levels, while the company's market capitalization exceeded pre-crisis values, reflecting investor confidence in enhanced security measures and ethical leadership that provided sustainable competitive advantages and reduced risks. The Federal Bureau of Investigation had established Chen Pharmaceuticals as a model for private-public cooperation in pharmaceutical security, while the company's innovations had influenced counterintelligence training and threat detection capabilities throughout American industry. International pharmaceutical markets had embraced Chen Pharmaceuticals' security standards and ethical leadership, while global regulatory agencies adopted the company's safety protocols as international standards for protecting patients and medical innovation from criminal interference and foreign sabotage. The Pharmaceutical Security Act had prevented similar crises while establishing comprehensive regulatory frameworks and security requirements that protected American pharmaceutical leadership from foreign interference and ensured that patient safety remained the highest priority. Victoria's personal transformation from crisis management to industry leadership had established her as a respected voice for pharmaceutical ethics, while her family's 70-year commitment to patient welfare had been validated through ethical crisis response and continued innovation. The security cameras that had recorded Victoria's agonizing decision to withdraw CardioMax had captured a defining moment of pharmaceutical leadership while documenting the personal courage required to prioritize patient safety over financial considerations and competitive positioning. Chen Pharmaceuticals' emergence from the worst pharmaceutical crisis in history as an industry leader in ethics and security had proven that moral courage and comprehensive accountability could triumph over criminal sabotage while creating lasting improvements in patient protection and medical innovation. Most importantly, the story reinforced fundamental truths about corporate responsibility and the consequences of betraying patient trust, while demonstrating that ethical leadership could generate sustainable competitive advantages and societal benefits that far exceeded temporary financial costs. The night Victoria pulled CardioMax from the market had become legendary in pharmaceutical education and business ethics, while serving as proof that individual courage and corporate responsibility could protect patients and serve public health interests through moral leadership and comprehensive accountability. Their legacy continued to influence pharmaceutical development and regulatory oversight, while inspiring medical professionals and business leaders who understood that patient welfare required vigilance against criminal interference and unwavering commitment to ethical standards that protected human life over financial gain. If this story touched you, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and tell us in the comments what part resonated most with you. Until next time.